My name is Clara, a 32-year-old woman who once believed in fairy tale endings. 3 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when I met Mark, the man who would become my husband. This is our story, a journey of love, trust, and eventual betrayal set against the backdrop of what seemed like a perfect marriage. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when fate led me to the corner cafe, where I sat, engrossed in a John Grisham novel. I was completely lost in the world of legal thrillers when Mark walked in. His presence was instantly noticeable. He had an air of confidence but wore a smile that was warm and inviting. "Is that Grisham's latest?" he asked, nodding toward my book. His voice was friendly, tinged with genuine curiosity. "Yeah, just started it. He's always a good read," I replied, pleasantly surprised by how easy it felt to talk to him. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, starting with our favorite authors and expanding to a deeper discussion. Mark had a way of making me laugh. His humor was both witty and endearing. It felt as if we were old friends catching up, not two strangers meeting for the first time. In the weeks that followed, Mark and I grew closer. Our shared love for old jazz and exploring hidden bookstores around the city cemented our bond. He was charming, respectful, and attentive. Each date left me more enchanted, and I found myself eagerly anticipating our next encounter. One evening, as we walked along the river, Mark's tone turned serious. "Clara, I've never felt this way before. I think I'm falling for you," he confessed under the dim glow of the streetlights. His words sent a rush of warmth through me. "I feel the same, Mark. You're unlike anyone I've ever met," I admitted, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and fear. 6 months passed in a whirlwind, and our relationship grew stronger with each passing day. During a quiet dinner at my apartment, Mark proposed. The moment was simple but profoundly sincere, and there was no hesitation in my answer. I loved him, and I believed in our future together. However, the joy of our engagement soon gave way to apprehension as the time came to meet Mark's parents. His mother, Linda, was a stern woman with piercing eyes that seemed to judge my every move. His father, though more amiable, had a serious demeanor, especially when it came to the institution of marriage. During a formal dinner at their home, Mark's father brought up the subject of a prenuptial agreement. "It's just practical," he said matter-of-factly. The request caught me off guard, but after my past experience with a cheating ex-boyfriend, I understood the necessity. "I agree," I said, steadying my voice, "but I have one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater owes the other $100,000. Mark's expression was a mixture of surprise and respect. "I promised Clara I'd never cheat on you," he said earnestly. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that, this time, my heart was safe. Our wedding was a beautiful affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and promises of forever. The first year of our marriage felt like a dream. We traveled to romantic destinations, spent quiet evenings at home, and supported each other's ambitions. Mark wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend and confidant. After the whirlwind of our wedding, we settled into married life with an ease that surprised even me. Our honeymoon in Paris was magical. Strolling along the Seine, we were two lovebirds lost in a city made for romance. "Can you believe we're here?" I asked Mark one evening as we watched the Eiffel Tower light up. He pulled me close and whispered, "With you, I can believe anything. This is just the beginning for us, Clara." Those days were filled with laughter, romantic dinners, and dreams of a future together. When we returned home, it felt like we had carried a piece of Paris with us, the bond between us stronger than ever. Back home, our life fell into a comfortable routine. Every morning, Mark would kiss me goodbye before heading to work. We were living in a bubble of happiness, untouched by the outside world, or so I thought. I'd be waiting with dinner when Mark got home, and we'd sit together, talking about everything and nothing, our conversations often stretching late into the night. One evening, as we washed dishes side by side, Mark glanced over at me and said, "You know, I never thought I'd be this happy doing something as mundane as washing dishes." I playfully flicked water at him. "That's because you've got an amazing wife. It's all about good company." He laughed, catching the water in his hands. "Absolutely. Marrying you was the best decision I ever made." Despite our happiness, outside pressure started creeping in, the subtle expectation that we should start a family. At every family gathering, Mark's mother, Linda, would drop not-so-subtle hints. "So, when are we going to hear some good news?" she asked one Sunday at lunch, her tone laced with expectation. I forced a smile and tried to brush it off with a joke. "Oh, you'll be the first to know when there's news." but her persistence grew over time, and it began to wear on me. Mark noticed my discomfort and was quick to reassure me. "Don't let my mom get to you. We'll start a family when we're ready, no sooner." Despite these pressures, our first year of marriage was magical. We celebrated our anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. After dessert, Mark surprised me by pulling out a small box. Inside was a delicate necklace I had admired months ago. "Happy anniversary, Clara. Here's to many more years of happiness," he said, his eyes glowing with love. Tears welled in my eyes as I whispered, "Thank you, Mark. I couldn't ask for a better partner in life." That night, as we cuddled on the couch, I couldn't help but feel incredibly lucky. I had a husband who loved me, a cozy home, and a future that seemed bright. But as our second year of marriage began, Linda's pressure intensified. It wasn't just about starting a family anymore. Her criticisms seeped into every aspect of our lives. Under the guise of being helpful, she made sure her disapproval was felt. Each visit from her became a minefield I had to navigate. One afternoon, as I set the table for lunch, Linda wandered into the kitchen. She surveyed the spread with a frown, her lips tightening. "Is this what you're serving?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. "A bit simple, don't you think?" I clenched my jaw, fighting to keep my composure. Her words cut deeper than she knew, and each encounter left me more drained. "I thought we'd enjoy something light today," I said, hoping to deflect Linda's disapproval. She simply sniffed, muttering under her breath about proper meals and good housekeeping. Her comments weren't limited to my cooking. She found fault in everything I did, from the way I decorated the house to how I spent my free time. Nothing was off limits. One evening, while Mark and I were relaxing in the living room, Linda, true to form, decided to offer her unsolicited opinion. "You know, Clara, if Mark gave me the money he wastes on you, I could hire a proper cleaner and cook." Mark looked uncomfortable but said nothing. His silence felt like a betrayal. I was seething but managed to keep my voice even. "Well, Linda, I'm doing my best here." What hurt most was how Mark's attitude started to shift. He began to echo his mother's criticisms, though in a more subtle way. After one of Linda's visits, Mark casually said, "Mom might have a point about the house. Maybe we should consider getting some help." I felt a pang of hurt and frustration. "So, you think I can't handle it either?" "No, that's not what I meant," he backpedaled, but the damage was done. The constant criticisms, combined with Mark's growing detachment, were straining our marriage. We started arguing over trivial things, our once easy conversations turning into tense exchanges. After one particularly heated argument, I found myself wondering aloud, "What happened to us, Mark? We used to be on the same team." He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know, Clara. It's just, everything feels so complicated now." I went to bed that night feeling lonely and misunderstood. Linda's insidious comments had not only invaded my home but had crept into my marriage, leaving me to wonder if the love Mark and I shared was strong enough to withstand this constant barrage of negativity. As the third year of our marriage rolled in, a sense of unease settled in my heart. The once bright flame of our love seemed to flicker under the shadow of doubt and mistrust. It began with a phone call, or rather, several of them. A name kept popping up on Mark's phone, Jake. I couldn't help but notice how Mark's demeanor changed whenever that name flashed on the screen. One evening, while we were watching TV, his phone rang again. Jake appeared on the screen. Mark quickly silenced it and put the phone away, but not before I caught the nervous glance he threw my way. "Who's Jake?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding. "Oh, just a new guy at work. No one important," Mark replied, but his voice was too nonchalant. His answer too rehearsed. Mark's behavior began to change. He started coming home late from work with flimsy, inconsistent excuses. His wardrobe underwent a transformation too, from casual attire to sharply tailored suits. Working late again, I questioned one night as he prepared to leave, noticing his dressed-up appearance. "Yeah, a big project," he said without meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." My frustration finally boiled over one evening as he was about to head out for yet another late night at work. "Mark, what's really going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. I confronted him, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. This isn't like you, Mark. What's really going on? Mark sighed, his expression a tense mix of guilt and frustration. I told you it's just work. Why can't you trust me? Because you're hiding something, I shot back, tears welling in my eyes. You're never here, and when you are, it's like you're a million miles away. He didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed his coat and walked out, leaving me standing there in stunned silence, feeling more alone than ever. That night, as I lay in our empty bed, I knew I couldn't live like this, trapped in doubt and suspicion. I needed the truth, whatever it might be. The next morning, with a heavy heart, I made the call to a private detective. It felt like a betrayal, but the constant worry and uncertainty were tearing me apart. I had to know the truth, no matter what it revealed about the man I thought I knew. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety and anticipation. I clung to normalcy by a thread, pretending everything was fine while my world crumbled beneath the surface. Then the call came, and with it, the final blow to my last shred of hope. "Mrs. Johnson, we have conclusive evidence," the detective said solemnly. His voice was heavy, matching the weight of the truth he was delivering. "I'm afraid your suspicions were correct." My heart sank as he explained that Mark had been having an affair. The Jake I had seen on Mark's phone was not a man, it was a woman. The detective provided detailed records of their meetings, complete with timestamps and photos. The evidence was undeniable, irrefutable. I sat frozen, clutching the phone, a storm of emotions raging inside me. Devastation, anger, and strangely, a sense of vindication. My worst fears weren't just fears anymore. They were cold, hard facts. Despite the pain, I didn't confront Mark right away. I needed more than just proof of his betrayal. I needed to understand the full extent of his deceit, how deep it ran, and whether there was anything left to salvage in our marriage. One evening, as I passed by his home office, I paused in the doorway, listening quietly. I overheard a conversation that sent a chill down my spine. Mark was on the phone with his mother, Linda. "Mom, I'm planning to end it with Clara after your birthday," Mark said, his voice cold and devoid of any affection. It was as if the love he once had for me had evaporated entirely. "Oh, that's wise, dear. But make sure she gets me a nice 65th birthday present before you drop the bomb," Linda replied, her tone dripping with callousness that took my breath away. I leaned against the wall, feeling sick to my stomach. Not only was my husband unfaithful, but he and his mother were plotting against me, planning to use me for one last expensive gift before discarding me like an afterthought. A wave of nausea and anger coursed through me, but I steeled myself. Instead of breaking down, I decided to fight back. From that moment, I played along, pretending as if nothing had changed. All the while, I was gathering more evidence of Mark's infidelity. The private detective delivered everything I needed: photos, videos, even audio recordings. With each piece of damning evidence, I felt my resolve strengthen. I wasn't going to be blindsided. I was preparing for the moment when I would strike back. Each night, as I lay next to the man who had betrayed me, I crafted a plan. I would wait until after Linda's birthday. Let them think they had the upper hand, that I was none the wiser. I would give them the illusion of victory, and when they least expected it, I would reveal everything and turn the tables. As Linda's 65th birthday approached, I put on a perfect mask of ignorance. On the outside, everything seemed normal, but inside, I was seething, a cauldron of anger, betrayal, and determination. A few days before her birthday, during a family dinner, Linda brought up her celebration with a smug grin. "So, Clara, I'm expecting a grand 65th birthday. You must have planned something special for me," she said with a sickly sweet smile, clearly relishing in the anticipation of a lavish gift. I kept my emotions in check, smiling back as if nothing was amiss. Inside, I was already savoring the moment when I would turn their world upside down. I responded to Linda's smug comment with a faint but deliberate smile. "Of course, Linda. I've arranged a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. It'll be a night to remember." Her eyes gleamed with excitement, completely unaware of the trap I was setting. "Oh, how wonderful. I can't wait. Just a small family gathering, right?" she asked, her voice dripping with self-importance. "Yes, very intimate and exclusive. Just for close family," I confirmed, my words tinged with hidden irony. Later that night, Mark approached me, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. "That's quite a generous plan for Mom's birthday. Are you sure about this?" I met his gaze with practiced calm. Absolutely, it's a significant birthday. I want to do something special for her. Though he nodded, I could tell he was puzzled by my sudden willingness to indulge Linda. I could feel him trying to figure out what I was hiding, but I held my mask firmly in place. As the dinner day neared, I finalized every detail. I confirmed the booking under Linda's name, rechecked the guest list, and ensured every aspect of the evening radiated grandeur. On the surface, I played the part of the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, but beneath the facade, I was ready to unleash the truth and end the web of deceit. The night before the dinner, I lay in bed, a twisted sense of satisfaction bubbling within me. I was mere hours away from turning the tables on Mark and Linda. They believed they were using me one last time. Little did they know I was holding the winning hand. When the evening arrived, the restaurant gleamed with luxury. Linda basked in the opulence, grinning from ear to ear. I smiled graciously, masking my inner turmoil. Mark, meanwhile, wore an uneasy expression, sensing that something wasn't quite right, but unable to put his finger on it. As the dinner drew to a close, the waiter approached with the bill, $4,500. I reached for my card with a steady hand, swiped it, and looked around the table. Linda's smug smile widened, and Mark glanced at me, still puzzled. "Thank you for such a wonderful evening, Clara," Linda cooed, her voice thick with insincerity. Then Mark leaned in, his voice carrying a hint of mockery. "By the way, Clara, I want a divorce." The words hit me like a slap, but I refused to let them see my pain. Linda seized the moment, her tone sharp and cruel. "Well then, I suppose you should leave. This is a family gathering, after all." I stood calmly, keeping my dignity intact. Without a word, I left the restaurant, my heart pounding. As I walked outside, I pulled out my phone and swiftly canceled the payment. With a few more taps, I blocked access to the shared account, ensuring Mark couldn't cover the bill either. Back at home, I packed my belongings, the finality of my decision settling in. I was done playing their game. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone buzzed with frantic calls. I answered one, and Linda's voice, shrill with panic, echoed through the line. "The payment didn't go through. The restaurant called the police. What have you done?" Her rage-filled words crashed over me, but I remained silent, savoring the poetic justice. This was their doing, their betrayal, their manipulation, coming back to haunt them. After hanging up, I looked around the empty house. Once filled with dreams and love, it was now just a hollow shell. I took a deep breath, stepped out the door, and didn't look back. The calls continued, desperate pleas for help, but I no longer felt obliged to answer. I had made my move, exposed their deceit, and now it was time to rebuild my life away from the lies that had suffocated me for so long. The next morning, I spent a restless night at a friend's house, but with the dawn came clarity and determination. It was time to end this chapter for good. When I arrived back at the house, Mark and Linda were waiting, their faces twisted with anger and confusion. I clutched the divorce papers and evidence of Mark's infidelity, steadying myself for the confrontation. Linda spoke first, her voice laced with scorn. "So, you've come crawling back after embarrassing us like that?" I met her gaze without flinching. "I'm not here to crawl. I'm here for a divorce." Mark, who had announced the divorce just the night before, suddenly tried to backtrack. "Clara, can't we talk about this? It was a mistake." I held up the evidence, cutting him off. "Save it, Mark. Your mistake was ongoing, and it's well documented." Linda scoffed, attempting to regain control. "You think you can just walk away and leave us with nothing? You're nothing without us." I placed the divorce papers on the table, my voice calm but resolute. "Actually, it's you who'll be leaving with nothing. According to the prenup, Mark owes me $100,000 for his infidelity." Mark's face turned ashen, and Linda's eyes widened in disbelief. Their usual bravado vanished, leaving them scrambling for words. "You can try to fight this, but the evidence is clear," I said. "I suggest you pay up and move on." With that, I turned and walked out, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. The calls and pleas that followed meant nothing to me. I had closed that chapter of my life for good. In the end, Mark paid what he'd owed, borrowing from his parents to do so. I didn't care where the money came from. It was more than compensation. It was closure. As I sat in my lawyer's office signing the final papers, a sense of peace washed over me. The journey had been painful, full of betrayal and heart-attack, but I had come out stronger, more resilient. I stepped into the sunlight, a free woman, ready to shape a new future. After all the darkness, I was finally stepping into the light.